Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Sonia. Here on my channel, we have healthy discussions about life, love, dating, and relationships while promoting self love and healing. I sometimes use hot topics and reality shows as my medium. And tonight, we're talking about Married at First Sight, Season 16, Episode 7. As you guys know, I am getting over a cold and I have somewhat of a voice left, more than I've had for the past few days. So I wanted to do a quick video because I may not be able to do one this weekend. I have to make up for my time being sick. But I wanted to talk about last night's episode of Married at First Sight. I really didn't see a lot, but I'm going to just go briefly over what my thoughts are. If you are new to my channel, welcome. If you are coming back, thank you so much. And I want to thank everyone for supporting me. Okay. So first up, we have Nicole and Chris, and they have their first hurdle, let's say. Nicole finds out that Chris is upset because Chris learns that they cannot have more than two dogs at their property, that their shared apartment. And Chris is devastated because he said his dogs have um, separation anxiety, and he just doesn't want to be without his dogs. Personally, I feel like there's a little bit more there. Separation of anxiety a lot of times means that they act out a lot. And maybe there's an issue with boarding. Maybe there's an issue with people babysitting for him or puppy sitting for him. Maybe there's other issues there. For me, I was just like, I feel like there's a lot happening that isn't necessarily being said. Now, I know everyone who has puppy babies, fur babies, loves their fur babies, and I don't have a problem with that. I don't think that's the issue. But I'm like, are they his support dogs as well? And does he have anxiety about maybe not having his support system? Or again, is this about what he's going to do with his babies? I think there was more to it, and which is why he was so upset. Nicole came in, she thought things through, reassured him, comforted him. I love that Nicole didn't take this as an opportunity to tear him down or say he was overreacting or attack him personally. Just reassured him and let him know, hey, we got this, we'll figure it out. And she went into action. And that also reassured Chris. So I think Chris was kind of feeling like, what if I get rejected? What if I have to let this process go? What if I have to let my dogs go? Like, what am I going to do? Here's where my concern comes in, because I am one to always feel as though I'm gathering information, especially when you're talking about dating and relationships and long-term relationships. I understand that Chris was upset. I'll never take that away from him. I don't have a problem with a man crying or expressing himself or showing that he has emotions. Like, I want you to be able to connect with your emotions in a healthy way. So I don't have a problem with that. For me, what I'm thinking about is in the future. You're talking about having children. I want to know that Chris can support Nicole when it comes time to handle tough situations and vice versa. I know there's a time where we have to have balance, where one person may not be so strong in a moment, the other person needs the other moment. Like, I just want to make sure, if I was Nicole, I would want to know that you can help support me as well, and that you will be able to think through things. Because for me, I'm wondering, like, why Chris didn't like contact Nicole and say, hey, we need to talk, and try to talk this through with her. And his reaction was the reaction it was. I still feel like there was more to it, and he was just kind of like taking it all in, and it was all he was trying to process all of this information and what possibly could be happening. But I would have loved for Chris to be able to say, Nicole, we really need to come up with some solution. This is what I just found out, and I don't want to let my dogs go, or I can't let my dogs go, or just kind of like talk through the process so that they can problem solve together. And I know in life that isn't always the case. Sometimes your partner has to be the one to pull you up, and sometimes you're the one that pulls your partner up. You know what I mean? But I would just hope let me say this, I hope in the future that this will be when they have challenges that they can come together, because what ends up happening is one person always being the hero. If this is the case, we don't know, okay, but I'm just saying, if it's the case where one person is always the hero, always the fixer, after a while they feel like they never have the opportunity to put their cape down, and that they can't rest on their partner, and they have to always be strong, and they don't get the moments to be vulnerable or to be cared for, you know? I don't think Chris is kind of somebody who would just brush Nicole off, but is he someone whom he becomes so overwhelmed with his emotions he can't make room for his partner? So that's the question I would have. But they handled it well. I think Chris was happy to know that he had someone who wasn't just going to kind of push things off, push things aside, and not consider him and not figure it out. And he had support, and I'm sure that means a lot, because it seems as though Chris doesn't get a lot of support. So I'm sure he was happy and surprised to receive that love and support from Nicole. Again, my only concern is that I hope that this is something that they can do for one another. Okay. And that's my only caveat about it. I don't feel like there was anything wrong. She did what needed to be done, you know. But when we talk about conflict management and solving things in a relationship, you want to know that your partner can also meet you there. So that's especially when you're talking about bringing children, you're talking about bringing 3 dogs and having kids and all these other things, and just life and marriage. Like, he's a business consultant. That means you work on fixing problems, right? So in your personal life, how do you manage? But I still think, again, that there was just a lot more there that we didn't hear a lot about. So kudos to the two of them. I'm happy that they figured it out. I'm happy that Nicole has a support system to help her. And she was able to show up for him so that they could rectify the situation. Next up, we have Clint and Gina. Clint stood up in front of the group to kind of give an apology, but not an apology. I think he really just wanted to explain himself. For Clint, I really wish that Clint had just been honest about everything. Like, just be honest about everything. For Gina, I wish Gina had told the whole story in its entirety, so it would have made it seem like Clint was just out somewhere out of the blue deciding that she wasn't attractive. But again, I think this weight issue is a Gina thing, and he kind of just touched on a nerve with the situation. Um, and we can't discredit Clint's feelings. I think that's my only issue. It's like, you want to be supported, and you want an apology, and you want to your feelings to be acknowledged. However, his feelings doesn't have to be. You don't think he had been teased for being a redhead kid? You know that term they used to say, redhead stepchild. Like, people with red hair have been picked on as well. Everyone in their own way has been picked on as well. And the fact that there's no consideration for the fact that Clint may have been bullied, or he may have dealt with things or have insecurities regarding his hair and his complexion, that this was problematic to me. I feel like both of them could have handled the situation better and differently. Honestly, I felt like if that was a personal conversation that you two were having with one another, it should have stayed personal. I felt like instead of taking digs at one another, it should have just been a raw, honest conversation about how you felt. And I understand that that isn't easy, because they don't really know one another. They're still getting to know one another, and their defenses are still up. But this is something that they can use as a lesson to learn how to really have honest conversations about what they're feeling, and what they need, and where the issues are, versus reacting and being reactive to one another. So that's really all I have to say. But I do wish they would both be honest, especially Gina. I think it's unfair for Gina to kind of make it seem as though Clint was just out of the blue tearing her apart, and not owning and not giving the grace and the treatment that she wants, not offering that to Clint. I feel like it should be a two-way street. Um, Next up we have Kirsten and Shaq. Kirsten and Shaq, they didn't really say much, but watching Shaq is so interesting because Shaq is kind of like always side-eyeing Kirsten and just like, I'm gonna go along to get along. And I kind of wish he wouldn't do that. I kind of wish he would live more in his truth, excuse me. Um, but they're just kind of getting along, and Kirsten relates to the lack of attraction that Gina and Clint are talking about. You can see her kind of like shaking her head at the table, and there's a few other times where this conversation has come up where she's agreed. And again, no one is saying anything about what she said. She said the same thing, but um I don't have a lot to say. Is they're pretending as though they're moving forward and everything is okay, but you can tell that there's an undercurrent, and you can tell that he's a little frustrated. So we're going to see what happens, but I think Shaq is just kind of like, I'm going to take whatever I can get, which I wish he wouldn't do. I don't want anyone to do that, including Jasmine. Like, don't just take what someone gives you if that isn't enough for you in a relationship, because you're signing on for a lifelong relationship with someone and none of your needs are going to get met. And it's a two-way street. That's one thing about relationships. Like, once you decide to commit to someone, especially in marriage, you're talking about constantly considering this person when you make decisions and everything else. And so when you are in a relationship where you're not being considered and none of your needs are being met, that leads to a miserable relationship. The problem with that is people go on to have children, and then they bring their children up in this environment, and the child grows up not knowing what it's like to consider a person, to respect a person, to show love and affection and emotions. And then they go on and date and do the same until hopefully they figure out, hey, I need to get some help to learn how to be healthy in a relationship. So it's a big deal when you're talking about being in a relationship with someone, especially if you're talking about having children. What you do to one another is one thing, but when you decide to have children, it's another thing. It's another issue. Excuse me. So that's it on the two of them. Next up, we have Jasmine and Airris. And again, I don't want to be too repetitive on Airris or Jasmine. I've been pretty much saying the same thing. We get to see Airris home, and you can see that well, first let me start here. He lets Jasmine know that she's in the friend zone. I don't even think that Airris feels like Jasmine is a friend. I personally feel Airris just doesn't know what to do. And I've been saying that. And that's why I said I don't really want to be repetitive. I don't think he knows what to do. He has not accessed his feelings and emotions in a long time. He hasn't had to step up to the plate. He hasn't had to express himself. He hasn't functioned in a relationship. He's had people, in my opinion, from what we see, just kind of like talking at him. He does, so there's no let's have communication. He's been able to be the mysterious guy that women get curious about, and then because they're curious about him, um, there's this kind of relationship, but they don't require much, so he doesn't have to do much. He doesn't have to say much. He's never had to really put in the effort or work, in my opinion. And now he's in a marriage, and things aren't going the way they usually go for him. And it's like, well, what did I do here? And I talked before about him being, I feel, emotionally stunted where his trauma happened. I feel like there's a lot of abandonment there. He lost his father twice, in essence, because we learned that he didn't grow up with his father in the household. I feel he grew up with his dad in the household and his dad was killed, but turns out his dad lived in a different state. And he lost his dad. So he lost them by him not being there in general. And then he lost them in death, unfortunately, as well. And he lost his uncle. And then we don't know whom else he's lost or who he's been connected to. Again, I feel like Airris just needs a lot of of help. I think there's some mourning that needs to happen, and I think that he, needs to work on that part of him that has not been able to process and deal with loss, because he shut down, he shut off, and this is where he's struggling. He doesn't know why he can't just turn this on, but he hasn't had to. And then I'm sure there's fear of losing someone, or of her walking away or pushing away, or maybe she views him as not enough and she wants to leave. A lot of times we think people are just player. I've never gotten player vibes from Aries. I said that, I was like, there's nothing suave about him. People have been curious about him, but I don't think he's doing all the things that he's doing. uh, I just don't buy what he's trying to say or what they're saying, but I don't feel that he is emotionally available either. And so with that, he's lost. And Aries just needs some help. I feel like Aries needs some help in order to be able to show up in any relationship with anyone, you know, including with himself. He says he spends a lot of time with himself. And I understand that. I'm that kind of person too. In order for me to deal with people, I have to be able to recharge, and I recharge alone. And that's okay. I don't have a problem with that. But I'm curious as to, what are you thinking about? What are you rectifying? What is it that you're trying to say? When he was having that conversation with Clint, he was able to see Gina's side, or her possible side, right? But he can't do that with a person that's close to him, because I feel he's worried about the loss of them. So he may or may not be attracted to Jasmine, or really this could be fear. It could be either or, it could be both. So we'll see. With Miss Jasmine, I wish the things that she says away from him, she would say to him. I wish she would say, hey, I don't want to be your friend. I want to be a wife. And unless you're talking about having a friendship, which is very important, unless you're talking about having a friendship in a relationship, I want to be your wife. I came here to be married, and I can be married to my friend if that's her truth, but I don't want to be friend zoned. I want Jasmine to express herself. I want Jasmine to work on getting her needs met. I want her to give some of that energy that she gives on the after party and to the cam to him, because Aries needs a little of that. Aries is used to structure, not structure. He's used to people saying what they mean and mean what they say. He'll be okay. So you don't have to worry about pushing him away. He will receive what it is that you're saying. It may take him a minute to process it, but I think that would be more clear, because I think that's another fear of his. He doesn't really know what she's thinking, because we find out on the after party that he slept with someone that she knows, the person that he was with a few weeks before. So I'm sure he's like, well, what does that mean? How does she view me? Because he cares what people think. Like, there's just so much there with him too. Maybe I'll do a video later about abandonment issues and men with, those kind of issues, just how abandonment issue shows up in relationships. But I want Jasmine to use her words and express herself as well. He comes in like, I'm making executive decisions. He doesn't know to ask, to have a conversation, to negotiate, to consider his partner, right? And I think some of it is for show. It's like, yeah, I'm the man. Sometimes when you don't feel masculine, you overact, right? Because you want to be respected as someone who's masculine and knows what they want. But it isn't true to how you really see yourself or feel. And I feel like that's an issue with Aries as well. So I wish Jasmine would use her voice more, so that she can get her needs met again. Next up, we have Mac and Dom. Okay, let me say this. I have had concerns about Mac, but I was trying to figure out what's going on, right? I feel like he's hiding some things. His story never added up to me. And I feel like Dom is picking up on that, right? And what would do Mac well is, instead of trying to be what he feels Dom needs him to be, he should just be honest about the process. So they go see his place, and she notices, like, you had no intentions on being here for real, right? Dom's biggest fear, I feel, is that I'm going to be away from my mom. His mom has already mentioned that he may want to move back to Michigan. He doesn't seem to have any roots in Nashville. He's been moving around. He had a successful business, but then he's doing something different in Nashville. He doesn't have a place of his own, not even a efficiency. So it's like, do you really plan on moving here or staying here? Did you really plan on being rooted here? And I wish she had just flat out asked that question, but it came across in her frustration in the conversation. He talked about her being critical of him and her being upset that he doesn't act a way that she wants him to act, which I said last time. Dom is like the girl in school that once you don't do things the way that I want, then I don't want anything to do with you, which isn't fair to the person because we are all individuals who do things our own way. He's not an adventurous person. He has said, I'm not an adventurous person and I want you to help me with that, right? But you don't really get that from her. It's more like, you complain and you bring down a mood and now I don't want to do things, which I could understand that as well. I think for both of them, they just need to really truly be honest. And I think what Dom is sensing is Max dishonesty. And because that's present, she can't trust him. And safety is very important to all of us. And she doesn't want to leave her mom. And she doesn't want to be tied to something that will cause her to leave everything that keeps her comfortable, her friends, her mom, her job. And so because he plays these kind of games and he's not so honest and so straightforward, I feel like she's afraid that she's going to get tied to him and married to him. And then they have to deal with him possibly wanting to go back to Michigan, which is not okay. But I wish she would just have that conversation, right? I have some concerns about the inconsistencies in your story. Mac needs to be honest. Like, Mac, you need to be honest about what's really going on here. What you came for the show? Just say, you know what, I came for the show. I moved in. I didn't know for sure if I was going to get chosen. And so I didn't want to buy a place here if A, I didn't like it here, or B, I didn't get picked. You know what I mean? Like, just tell the truth and then let her make an informed decision. Don't take the right for her to make a decision away without, because you're not giving full information. I feel like that's what he needs to do. Just be honest about what really happened, because you can tell you didn't move there with the intention to really relocating there. So, and then what else is going on? So I think there's just an issue with honesty, and I think Dom can be honest as well, instead of trying to like nitpick him and pick him apart. Like, I know it's hard to be vulnerable, especially with a stranger, but tell your truth. What your fears really are. And that is your fear that you're not stable. But she's gonna, I think, act it out more than verbalize what her concerns are. So that's where you're gonna have the issue with those two. But I don't know. I guess they're not gonna make it. She's gonna leave, and we already saw her kissing Clint later. So I don't know why they put that out so early. um, but it's pretty much let us know that at least two of the couples didn't make it. So those are my thoughts on them. And we're going to see what happens. More to come next week. But I hope you guys are well. Please let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Please don't forget to thumbs up the video. Please, please, please thumbs up the video. And most importantly, please don't forget to love yourself for who you are. Please turn on the notification bell as well, guys. It's been real interesting here around these YouTube streets. So, but I look forward to talking to you guys soon. I look forward to having another live soon. Most importantly, I look forward to being well, because it's cold and we are been tussling. Okay. So be well. Take care. I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.